A while back on Twitter, Austin King of the Dragon Quest FM podcast and Geek to Geek Media and writer for Screen Rant was talking or posting about how he had just finished Monster Hunter Stories 2, and I think that he even said that it's his game of the year. I think I remember him posing a question of like, hey, what's your favorite game of the year so far? Or what's your game of the year so far? And I got to thinking that I don't really know. I haven't really played any games this year, apart from Bowser's Fury. But at the time, I hadn't even really dug that deep into it. And I know I like Bowser's Fury, but I wouldn't call it my game of the year. So I kind of just said that I don't know. I don't know. And then I played Eastward, and having just finished the game just a few days ago, I would say that this is probably the closest to my game of the year, with Metroid Dread kind of really close behind. But really, it's these two games, Metroid and Eastward. And I'm not even a big Metroid fan, but everything from like the art direction, the sound design, and just the overall aesthetic and the tone of the game is just something that like really just resonated with me. I really like the characters. I really like the world that was crafted. And it's also one of those games that wasn't too long. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was a good chunk of time, but it didn't feel like I had to really power through the game like most other games. And I think that if this was a game that came out just a few decades ago, if this was a game that came out in the 90s when pixel art, such as, the way Eastward looks, was, I guess, the standard at the time. And I know that Eastward kind of takes it a little bit further than necessary just because we have the capabilities to, make visual games like this now. But if this art style or this aesthetic came out in the 90s when it was the standard, I think it would be a game that we would all be talking about today. I think it would be a game that we'd all kind of remember if we played it back then, and be recommending it, and it'd be like on the charts of like top games of the 90s, I guess. I really, really enjoyed Eastward, and I hope that this is a game that makes it to the top of its contemporaries. I really hope that this is a game that sits on top with like Undertale and Stardew Valley, because I think that it really deserves it. I think that the people at Pixipil, I don't know how to say the name of the team that developed it, but I think that they really set out to make something special, and I think that they delivered. Now, I know that this isn't a game that would appeal to everybody, because I played this with my friend, and something that I found really charming was something that he found kind of annoying, and that was the heavy dialogue. This game gets a little bit mouthy, and I personally don't mind it. I found it really charming. I really enjoyed the cast of characters, and I know that he found it less charming, because I think that he really wanted to just kind of dive into the gameplay. And the way that I got him to play was just be like, oh, it's like Zelda gameplay. There's puzzles and instead of a sword you got a pan, but it's basically Zelda gameplay. And I think that that's what he jumped into, and that's what he wanted to get into, and he couldn't wait to get into further gameplay. And I think that he got bogged down by the story elements of the game, and more so because it took a long time to kind of deliver the story from beat to beat. But then I didn't really mind it, and I remember, I think, seeing it on Reddit, or might have been on Twitter, I don't remember, but somebody said that Eastward is a very heavy story-driven game that is kind of cut up with gameplay. That the game is more so story, and then we get breaks or pauses with gameplay. And I think that when I seen that, it kind of like, yes, I see that, and I'm okay with it. I don't mind it. I actually really like it. And so playing through Eastward and having it not be a super long game, because I finished the game around 19 hours, so it didn't overstay its welcome as I think I might have mentioned in this take of the video. That's super cool. It's super refreshing. I like shorter games. I don't mind anything that's under 30 hours, as long as it's fun, as long as I enjoy myself, And the cost of entry is $25, so it's not bad. It's really, really not a bad deal. But anyways, it is a very heavy story-based game, but at the same time, it's also very vague. And I think once you finish the story, which I'm not going to really get into, and you kind of go look online to see what other people are saying, they're generally all saying the same thing, that it's very vague, and that the writers or the creators of the game left it up to our imaginations to kind of fill in the gaps with certain aspects of the game. And I guess trying to be as light spoilery as possible, something that happens in the game where we meet characters at one location, but then as the game progresses and we move on to different locations and stuff, the same characters come back, but they look different. And so there's like this whole like time aspect of the game that kind of really messes with you. The game just won't outright tell you what's going on, and you kind of figure out what it is that's happened. Then there are like things with like the main characters, or Sam, who I would say is essentially the driving force of the game. She's really interesting because she kind of reminds me of a JRPG protagonist, where she's kind of like the chosen one. And it's really like, it's her game, but she's like, sharing the game with our boy John, who is the actual protagonist of the game. It's really weird. Like, there's this like dichotomy between the two characters, and you're kind of there as John taking in Sam's story, and there's a whole like arc going around Sam, and she's like essentially the chosen one. And you find out like what's going on with that. But again, I'm trying to be very vague for those who haven't played the game yet. And so that whole aspect I really liked as well, and I think that not a lot of people really jive with it, just because the game just won't outright tell you what's what. But I think that's part of the charm, because then like now I can go with my friend and we can have like conversations and theorize about what it is that occurred in Eastward. But I guess to kind of finish off this video though, is to kind of come back and talk about John very briefly. As I said, that Sam is kind of like the true protagonist of the story. It's essentially her story. John is there along for the ride. John is the one who found Sam, and John doesn't speak. He is a silent protagonist, but he doesn't really remind me of like traditional silent protagonists, where he really is just a vessel or a link in the case of Zelda, to experience a story, for us to project into what is occurring in the game, but generally having like a very monotone appearance. John more so reminds me of the hero from Dragon Quest 11. Very different games. Dragon Quest 11 it was in 3D, and they added that 2D mode for those who bought into 11S and chose to go in that direction. But at least as far as the 3D goes, you can see that the hero from Dragon Quest 11 was very wide-eyed in the first act, and then by the end of the second act and going into the third act, like his eyes just show that he's seen some stuff. He's gone through some things, and he's developed as a character. Like, the hero from Dragon Quest 11 grows as the story progresses, just the way that any character would. And I feel like we get some of that with John. Granted, this is pixel art, and it's not as easily conveyed as having a 3D model, but his mannerisms, the way that he acts without actually saying a word, it shows us that he isn't as silent, I guess, or he isn't quite the vessel for us to kind of project onto. And I think that making John this burly, older man is an interesting approach, because his look isn't really a look that most people would project to. Like, for example, I don't have a beard. I've tried growing a beard, but it's just not for me. And, when I look at John, I was just like, I don't imagine myself as John. I imagine John as being this character that I'm playing as, to find out the story that is taking place. And John he's a cook. He found Sam, and he deeply cares about Sam. He's raising Sam as his own. He takes her to school. He picks her up from school. They share moments together. He takes care of her as if he was part of her family, or as if Sam was his daughter. And that's such a interesting take for a main character, and for a story to tell. It's like kakushigoto, but in a video game. And I don't know, man. I really like John and Sam together, and the dynamic that they had together, and the way that the story presents itself with these two characters. It's really them exploring the world and making friends along the way, but then also kind of going against nature itself without saying too much, I guess. I don't want to say it's them against the world, because they definitely made friends along the way, and that's a very beautiful thing. Have you played Eastward? Is it a game that resonated with you? I know that on the Eastward subreddit, some people outright just posted saying, like, I dropped the game. And I don't know, I didn't really read why they dropped it, but I know not a lot of people stood with it. But if you stick with it, I think it's kind of rewarding, and it leaves you thinking, kind of gives you some time to kind of process your feelings and kind of contemplate the world itself. But let me know what you guys think. Have you guys played Eastward? If not, why haven't you played it? And are you interested in playing Eastward? Why did you click on this video? If you like this video and you want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel, leave a thumbs up, and comment down something below. I will see you guys all in the comment section. Bye, ciao.